"We don't need old men like you dragging us down," she said, flipping her hair as if dismissing me was a formality. "My name is Stanley Rowe. I'm 59 years old and had been the operations manager at Harper Machinery in Indianapolis, Indiana for the past 18 years. Not the kind of man who made speeches or demanded attention in meetings, just the steady hand that kept the gears turning at a company that manufactured industrial equipment for half the factories in the Midwest." I just smiled sarcastically, nodded once, and walked out of Vanessa's office. No arguments, no threats, no drama, just cleared out my desk methodically while the younger staff averted their eyes. Some of them had been hired as teenagers, now men and women with families, and I'd trained every single one. But nobody said a word as I packed up almost 2 decades of my life into a cardboard box. Charles Harper had built the company with his own hands 43 years ago. Started with a single lathe in his garage, built it into a $30 million business through pure grit and a reputation for reliable machinery. He'd handpicked me to run operations when his health started failing. "You're the only one I trust not to cut corners," he'd said. Now his daughter Vanessa, 28 years old with a business degree and 2 years living in Miami, had decided the company needed modernization and fresh perspectives. Code for getting rid of anyone who remembered how things were done before spreadsheets replaced common sense. As I walked to my truck carrying that pathetic box of personal items, I felt a strange calm, because what Vanessa didn't know, what she hadn't even bothered to check, was that my employment contract had a very specific clause, one that Charles himself had insisted on to keep me from being poached by competitors. A severance penalty equal to 2 full years' salary if I was terminated without cause. I placed the box in the passenger seat and sat there for a minute, hands resting on the steering wheel. Through the windshield I could see the production floor, equipment I'd maintained myself, systems I'd implemented, people I'd hired, all about to learn what happens when institutional knowledge walks out the door. I didn't slam the door, didn't screech out of the parking lot, just turned the key, put the truck in drive, and headed home to call Harold Preston, a lawyer friend who'd been waiting for an excuse to take on a corporate case this straightforward. I'd never been the flashy type. Married 29 years to my wife Linda before cancer took her 4 years ago. Raised 2 kids who were both doing well. Son in Denver with an engineering firm. Daughter teaching 3rd grade in Cleveland. My life had been built around consistency and reliability, the same approach I'd brought to Harper Machinery. Charles Harper had been more than just a boss. In many ways, he was the father figure I never really had. My own dad having disappeared when I was 11, leaving my mother to raise 3 boys on a secretary's salary. Charles had taken a chance on me back when I was 41, coming off a layoff from a dying automotive plant with nothing but hands-on experience and a community college degree in mechanical engineering. "Credentials don't build machines," Charles had said during my interview. "Men with sense and skill do." He'd promoted me to operations manager within 2 years. Charles and I weren't the types to go fishing together or hit the bar after work, but there was a respect between us that went beyond the workplace. When Linda got sick, he'd been the one to rearrange my schedule without me even asking, ensuring I could take her to every treatment. Family first, Stanley, always. The first warning sign came about a year ago when Vanessa started showing up at meetings, fresh out of business school, carrying a leather portfolio and trailing a cloud of expensive perfume, talking about synergy and market disruption. I'd catch Charles wincing sometimes at her suggestions, proposals that would have gutted our quality control or outsourced components we'd always made in-house. But he never contradicted her publicly, just quietly fixed things afterwards. "She needs to learn, Stanley," he told me one afternoon, leaning against my office doorframe. "Some lessons can't come from books." The second warning was when Charles announced his retirement 3 months ago. Heart problems, he said, though I suspected it was more about succumbing to Vanessa's pressure. He looked defeated when he handed me the updated organization chart with Vanessa's name at the top. "I made her promise to keep the core team intact," he'd said, not quite meeting my eyes. "The experience you all bring is what makes this place work." I just nodded, but something in my gut tightened. The way Charles wouldn't look directly at me like he knew what was coming, but couldn't bring himself to say it. The morning after my termination, I was sitting at my kitchen table reviewing my employment contract with Harold when my phone rang. Charles's name lit up the screen. I almost didn't answer it. Almost. But 18 years of respect doesn't vanish overnight. "Stanley." His voice sounded strained. What the hell happened yesterday? Ask your daughter, I said, keeping my tone neutral, not angry, just stating facts. I did. She said you were. He paused, searching for words, resistant to the new direction. Said you were undermining her authority with the floor team. I said nothing. Just let the silence stretch between us. Charles knew me better than that, knew I'd never undermined anyone. You're going to file, aren't you? He finally asked. Already have, I replied. Harold Preston is handling it. Charles exhaled heavily. I told her to look at the contracts. Told her before I stepped down that there were protections in place. Another pause. She said she cleaned house yesterday. You, Thomas, Jennifer, anyone over 50? My jaw tightened. Thomas had been our head of engineering for 12 years. Jennifer ran the quality control lab like it was her personal kingdom, both irreplaceable in their own ways. Is that the direction you wanted, Charles, clearing out everyone who built the place with you? You know it's not, he said, voice tired. But I gave her control. It's hers to run now. I heard voices in the background on his end, one of them distinctly Vanessa's, sharp and demanding. I've got to go, Charles said quickly. The call ended abruptly. I set the phone down and stared at my contract spread across the table. Section 12, paragraph 3. In the event of termination without documented cause as defined in Appendix C, employee shall be entitled to severance compensation equal to 24 months of current salary. Harold had highlighted it in yellow. It's airtight, he told me earlier. They'll either pay or we'll take them to court where we'll win, and they'll pay my fees too. I walked to the window overlooking my backyard. The maple tree Linda and I had planted when we first moved in 26 years ago now towered over the property. We'd nurtured it through 2 lightning strikes and a disease that nearly killed it, patched it up, supported it, gave it what it needed to thrive. Something shifted inside me. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about value, about recognizing what experience brings to the table, about respecting the foundation others built before you decided to renovate the house. I picked up my phone and called Thomas, then Jennifer. By noon I'd spoken with every veteran employee Vanessa had axed. Some were shell-shocked, others furious. All of them worried about their futures. Take a breath, I told each of them. Check your contracts. Call Harold. Then I made one more call to Douglas Clean, owner of Precision Parts across town, a man who'd been trying to hire me away from Harper for years. Still interested in that conversation? I asked him. 3 days after being fired, I sat across from Vanessa and Harper Machinery's corporate attorney in a downtown office. Harold Preston beside me, his weathered briefcase open, my contract prominently displayed. This is ridiculous, Vanessa said, not even looking at the document. We're implementing a new direction. That's cause enough. Harold, 67, with the patient demeanor of a man who'd seen every corporate trick, simply pointed to the highlighted clause. Termination without cause, as defined in Appendix C, requires severance equal to 24 months' salary. Approximately $320,000 in Mr. Rowe's case. The corporate lawyer, young guy named Justin, who looked fresh out of law school, scanned the contract with growing discomfort. Miss Harper, the definition of cause here is quite specific. Performance issues, ethical violations, criminal acts. He was resistant to change, Vanessa interrupted, crossing her arms. That's insubordination. Where's the documentation? Harold asked. Written warnings, performance improvement plans, because Appendix C requires a documented pattern, not a single instance. Justin flipped through a thin folder in front of him, finding nothing. Vanessa's face tightened. Fine. So, we pay him a few months severance and move on. 24 months, Harold corrected, as stipulated. That's ridiculous, she snapped. We'll offer 6 months. Take it or leave it. I stayed silent, watching her. In that moment, she reminded me of her father. The same stubborn set to her jaw, but Charles's stubbornness had always been in service of building something. Hers seemed aimed at tearing down. Harold closed his briefcase. Then we'll proceed with legal action. Discovery should be interesting, especially regarding the simultaneous termination of multiple employees over 50. Justin's eyes widened slightly. He leaned toward Vanessa and whispered something urgent. She brushed him off. Before you make threats, Vanessa said to me, ignoring Harold completely. You should know we're prepared to fight this. You'll be tied up in court for years. I finally spoke. I've got time, and will make it known throughout the industry that you're difficult." She added, "Good luck finding another position at your age." That's when her father appeared in the doorway. I hadn't seen Charles since his retirement party. He looked thinner, paler, but his eyes were sharp as ever. "Vanessa," he said quietly. "A word. We're in the middle of something, Dad. Now, not a request." They stepped outside through the glass wall of the conference room. I could see them arguing, Charles gesturing emphatically, Vanessa's posture growing more defensive. When they returned, Vanessa wouldn't look at me. "Justin," Charles said, "prepare the severance agreement as written in the contract." "Dad," Vanessa started, "not now." Charles turned to me. "I apologize, Stanley. This isn't how I wanted things to end." I nodded once. Nothing more needed to be said between us.